In this new lesson about Substance 3D, we're gonna continue to import and we're gonna export and we're gonna work with the 3D models and textures. And we're gonna see more and more tools that we can find in this software. So first thing I wanna do is retrieve the previous lessons, it's lesson 04. And in this lesson right here, we imported an FBX format file for the model, and we then need to create the texture because it wasn't applied automatically. And then we continued, we created also some brushing here, some painting using more advanced effects like the channels that we find also in the material, like the base color, the height map, the normal map, the roughness, the metallic, and so on. So we experimented a little bit more with the textures, a little bit more with the brush, and that also what we're gonna do in this video as well. Now, this time I wanna use another format. I wanna use OBJ. But before we continue to import, let's also see how we can export. So I can go to File and go here, and you can see I can export the mesh, and I can choose to apply a triangulation of the faces or not. So if I want to transform like standard faces or standard polygons into triangles, and then when I hit export, I can choose here the format. So you can see I've created a folder here that I called exported, and I've saved these in OBJ format. But you can also choose others, like you can export in FBX, you can export in GLTF, and so you have also others here, but these are the most popular: OBJ, FBX, GLTF. So I'm gonna export these also in FBX, and let's call this a little bit differently. Let's call it FBX, and there you go. So this is how you will export. Now you usually don't do this in Substance because you want to work mostly with the painting and with defining the textures rather than like sculpting. For the sculpting, you have other software like ZBrush or Mudbox. And also we can export here the textures. And when you export in the texture, you can choose which texture you want to export, and you can define a folder here. So I will select a specific folder. Otherwise, they're gonna go like into a default folder. So I'm gonna call these like textures, and I'm gonna export them here. And I can choose which model textures I want to export. And then the output template, well, if I'm gonna use Blender, I'm gonna choose Blender. Otherwise, you have other settings like for Arnold in 3ds Max, or you have like Corona or Cinema 4D or Keyshot or V-Ray, Redshift, RenderMan. So you have a lot of presets you can use depending on which render engine, depending on which software you want to continue to work. So in this case, I'm just going to keep Blender, and then the file type could be PNG, could be JPEG, and this is the color depth, so 8-bit will be fine. And then the size of the textures you want to export, so let's say 1K, and that's basically it. So I think that's gonna be fine. Now, also, if you go here, you have output templates. So you can choose again to convert, like transfer into different names, because many different render engine out there, they have different names for the materials. So you probably want to convert to make them more compatible with the mesh that and the texture that you're gonna use in the other software. So you can use this, and that's it. So these are the list of the export we're gonna do. So when we hit now export, we're gonna export those, and there you go. So we just finished. It's really quick operation. Now before we move into Blender, I want to show you again the file that we use. This is the author right here, and again we can check the various colors and normals or opacity maps, emission maps, and so on. So some of these models, they could have like just 2 or 3. Some of those, they wouldn't have anything of this. So we already talked about the importance of the normal map. Normal map will generate like details without actually do those details with modeling and sculpting, which will be, much heavier to instead of having a normal. And I'm gonna make another example later. So, well, we use this file here, and we can check also the wireframe, so we can see the actual phases or polygons how they are displayed. So these are not using triangulation, it's not using triangles, it's using like four-sided polygons or faces. Now, I also want to use this other model in this video, which is a lion crushing a serpent. And again, this is the author right here. And this is an OBJ file. So when you go to download model, you can download it in OBJ. So we will make a test also importing the OBJ. And you see here we have base color and metalness, and then roughness and normal map. Again, normal map here will create a lot of details that are not actually in the mesh. Otherwise, they will be visible here in the wireframe. So wireframe is more complex than the other one. It's triangulated. It's not a clean geometry or topology if we compare it to the alien, but it's still not so, overpopulated of points and triangles. So most of the details are still taken care by the normal map. Now, I also want to see this file right here into Substance, because this is a photogrammetry file. So if I go down here, I can also see the picture that the author has taken to do the 3D. So again, this process called photogrammetry is converting images or a video into an actual 3D object. And this is the, practical explanation and demonstration of how it's going to work. So there are many software out there that can do 3D scans of things, and then they can just create the 3D model using also the textures, not only the mesh and the topology. Now, to finish this quick tour, I want to show you here another model that I found here again on Sketchfab, which is this castle. So this is again done with photogrammetry, but like with a drone or something. And so you may say that this is a really realistic model. And well, yes, it is, but it also has a lot of issues. If I go really close, I can start to see like some missing things that you probably don't have when you do real modeling and sculpting. So handcrafted, not just by using a scan. So if I go there, you can see there are like a lot of, strange shapes and things. And if I go really close, I can also see the texture is not so great. So photogrammetry is a really interesting thing, but it has also some faults. And so if I go here, I can see that I have a wireframe, which is again triangulated, pretty complex, because this is what a scanning process. So you go there and scan everything, and then create a point cloud, and then converts those points into a real 3D mesh. And you can see we don't have a normal map here. So all the details here are only in the wireframe, in the model, in the actual polygons, and also a little bit in the base color, which is, just a picture, and it's kind of flat. So just to show you again the various possibilities and what are the differences, and just to compare the photogrammetry with standard modeling and sculpting. Now, if you want to do more modeling, you can use, for example, Cinema 4D and 3ds Max or others, or Maya, and you will find those in the channel. So you can follow the lessons and courses. For sculpting, you can use ZBrush or Mudbox, and you can also use Blender. And also we created courses not only in ZBrush and Mudbox, but also in 3D character design in Blender and 3D architecture in Blender, if you want to check them. And for rendering, well, the most popular are V-Ray, Corona, but you also have like Redshift and Octane. So they all have like slightly different ways to render, and different names for the materials, different names for the channels, and for the maps, for the textures. So sometimes you need to go there and get your hands dirty. And also, if you want some more advanced features, you can use a Unity or Unreal Engine to create like video games, interactive applications. So in these cases, probably if you want to do an animation, probably need some clean topology like this. If you need an object just, as a prop, you can use more complex geometry like this, or like the castle here. So depending what you need to do, you need to know which one is the best. So this is Blender 4 right here. And now I can start to bring in my model. So I want to delete first the cube here. And so I'm just going to go import. So File, Import, and let's start with the GLTF that usually works the best. So I'm going to go here and go in my exported folder, select GLTF, and there it is. Now I can check here the wireframe if I click here. And again, this is not a course in Blender, so if you want to know Blender, you can check the other courses and guides in the channel. Now you can see here I've applied the triangulation, so the model is slightly different from the original, and it's more complex in terms of structure, but we don't really need that because it's going to look the same. Let me just push this aside. Then I'm going to go to import OBJ export, and I'm going to go to, again, export it in my case. So I'll select that. And look what happens here. Now the OBJ is way bigger than it's supposed to. So big that it doesn't even fit the camera. So I need to scale it down. Scale it down, make it small as the other one. And you can see I've not applied the triangulation here. This is just the original model. So you can see that the topology is lighter and also cleaner than the other one. Okay, and now let's finish with the last import in FBX. So we can do like comparisons, and that's the FBX. Now, if I see the wireframe here, again, is triangulated. So let's move into the viewport shading solid. So you can see, yeah, it does. There is some difference here in the representation, but this is not the material yet. This is just the color. To see the actual materials, we need to go forward to the third sphere. But we can see that like the model looks pretty much the same in all the cases. So no difference in the mesh in these different exports. Now, if I go in materials, we have a little bit of difference. Now, this one looks more like glossy. This one here looks more diffuse. This one is white. So we do have some difference actually. And then let's move into the other one, the last one. This is the render. So I'm gonna choose here to render with the standard HDRI. And then if I want a more advanced renderer, I can go here to the render settings and change it to Cycles. Cycles is the render engine in Blender. So we do have nice results already, but the problem here is that we don't have the textures. So textures are not directly applied. We need to create them. We need to create or customize the material inside Blender. Now, if I select this and I go here to the material tab, I can see that this has its own material, and then the blaster here has another material. So the objects are actually separated. This other one instead is a single object, but has multiple materials inside him. And also this one here, you see, it's pretty much the same. So we can decide which one we want to work with. It's up to you. So let's say I want to work with this. Well, in that case, I just need to address the right material. For example, this is the alien hominid material, and then I just need to create it. So one way to do that is to go directly down here and change the base color. Again, this is like substance. I need to change the color first. And I either use a uniform color or I apply an image texture. So I'm going to go to image texture, and now it's purplish because it doesn't find it. So if I go click here to open the folder, I'm going to get the texture that I need. And I've exported those into another folder called texture. So you can see this is the material I've been creating in Substance. There you go. But that's just one part of the whole deal. We need to have the other textures. So to get the other textures, what I'm going to do is change here to the shading. So that's like to work with materials, it's better to use this shading mode so we can see the actual material structure. So you can see that in Blender, we have these way to create materials to render. So, and it's going to be different in another software, but the concepts, they stay the same. So here I just want to insert the other texture. I can do like this. I can click and drag. For example, for the metallic, I can click and drag and then search for image, texture, color, and then I can click here and open up the other texture that is the metallic one. Make sure you work with the alien, not with the blaster. Those are two different objects. So here we're working with the alien, and let's look for the metallic. There you go. There it is. So I'm gonna open it up, and now I have the two. So I have one for the diffuse and one for the metallic. Now for the roughness, let's do another way. We're gonna go directly into the folder and just drag and drop the file that we want. So I'm just gonna look for the alien. Let's expand this. So I want to get the normal here and the roughness, which are the other two we're missing. So I'm gonna click and drag, and there you go. So that's the roughness actually. So I need to get the normal also. So I'm gonna click and drag it and bring it into the roughness. And you can see now the high is shiny, while the rest is kind of glossy, also in some parts, and the rest is diffuse. So that's the way we worked in Substance. That's perfect. So if this is not working, you need to make sure that you didn't do the wrong thing here. And then the normal, I'm just gonna like click here. Now for the normal, we need a normal map, so another node before we actually bring in the texture. So this is the normal map node, and then here in the color, I click and drag, and I just get the final texture, which is gonna be the one of the normals, which again can be used to simulate 3D effects without actually sculpting those 3D effects. Now remember that this is the shading mode, and right now we're not using the best render that we have in Blender. To use that, we're just gonna go back to layout when we choose on the cycles render, so we can see now the best results. So this is a quick explanation about things work in Blender, but probably it's going to be similar in all software out there. You need to define the 3D model, need to make sure it works and is correct, the scale, the size, the orientation, and then you just address the material. Now, sometimes it's going to do everything automatically, but sometimes, again, you need to get your hands dirty and you need to figure it out yourself. And you can see this is working pretty fine. So I'm just going to close this and save this as a file that I want to use maybe later in Blender. And let's continue with the lion. So I'm gonna go back into the Substance Painter application and gonna go to, again, File, New, and I'm gonna select the lion, or I drag and drop the asset as we already saw. Now, also before we import this, if you change here the template, you're gonna have a slightly different setting when you create a new layer. So for example, if let me choose one of these, let's choose like well, V-Ray materials, specular glossiness, and select this the lion, and let's say okay, and there you go. Now you can see here that I am in 3D view, but I can change this and make it back to 2D and 3D. But look at the mapping here. You can see it's kind of messed up. So again, this is something that usually happens with photogrammetry. It's going to be like not well, it's going to be automatic. So sometimes it's just gonna figure it out by yourself. So if you want to do a correct envelope mapping, you probably want to use a software that can do that. But again, this is pros and cons of photogrammetry. Let's go to 3D only. And also we are seeing this from the top because, well, depending on where this model was created, you have different types of orientation, and the axis there, you can see that Z right now is the height. And if I try to orbit around, it's going to orbit in a strange way. So something I can do is change this to like free rotation, just rotate it like this. You can hold the Alt and the Shift key and try to find a good like front view, and then I'm gonna just orbit a little bit like this. So that's gonna be fine for what I need to do. Now, what we can do here is again start to bring in the textures, but let's see how if they are different. So I'm gonna create here a new fill layer, and there you go. So that's the new fill layer, which is probably black, and so it's probably because I've chosen that particular type of template. And here you can see we have a lot of textures we didn't have before, like transmission or glossiness instead of roughness, and then we have specular. So it's kind of different than the PBR setting we used before. So well, we can start here and just, as we already know, change directly the uniform effect of the specularity. So for example, the white means full specularity, black means diffuse effect, and also glossiness here. We can push it up or down. So sometimes we can just work with the color when black means the least or the absence of the effect. The white means the total of that effect, which is glossiness right now. You can also use this little button to flip it and invert the effect, and then we have the height. Well, in this case, there's nothing changing here with the height. Normal, also we have uniform color, emissive if you want to make like some lamp object, and then we have transmission if you want to have transparency. And again, these are some effects that probably work in V-Ray, not right here, but we can prepare that for V-Ray, or we can choose just another of these, for example with the roughness instead of the glossiness, which is more PBR. And there you go. So again, we have the lion. Let's rotate again, bring it right here in the front, and there you go. And then we have, let's see here, if we create another fill layer, now this is gray again, and we only have height, normal, color, roughness, metal. So back on the kind of the same page of before. So depending the template is going to be just a little different. Now here, I can again bring the maps, or I can just also use other layers. We're gonna see these more and more during the course, but essentially here we have like effects, masks. We can paint. So we already have a paint layer here. I can put it on the top, and then we can fill with one color only, like we did already. So now we are filling here with the base color. And be careful because we're not, this is the paint, this is the fill, so it's easy to get a little bit confused with all these similar settings. And I want to create also here a new preset. So these are smart materials. Now smart materials, they behave well in a smart way, and they're also going to be more interesting than a uniform color. They have some textures inside, they have some normal maps effects. So let's try, for example, with this. You see this has a lot of like defects. So it looks like a metal, but it's not like a perfect metal. It has defects, and I can add also like gold, so perfect gold. So some of these they use textures, and some of these they use roughness channels, normal channels to have more effects. This is why they're called smart. You can also find them here, by the way. So if you click on the smart materials, you can also find them here. And you can also, in this case, click and drag them onto the model. So you also have like fabric and wood and steel painting. So I can apply that on top of the previous one. And maybe this another plastic. So we can continue here to apply more and more. Then leather, and then we have other stuff essentially that you can place. And some of these will work better than others. Then you can turn them off. Let's delete some of these, or you can use different opacity. So if I change the opacity, if I bring down the opacity, I will be able to see what's beneath. And also I can use blending modes like Photoshop essentially. So if I just start to choose a different blending mode, I can blend with whatever it's on the lower levels. So on the lower levels, I have this metal right here. Now you can choose another, you can also disable the effect, or you can use inverse or lighten or darken blending modes. Just click and with the arrows up and down if you want to change them quickly, and just you see here you can blend and find something interesting. Now I want to go into the folder where I downloaded my lion here and also the textures. I want to bring those textures just by clicking and dragging here and placing them into the library, and these are going to be texture, and we already did this before. Now I need at least one layer, so I'm going to start with the fill layer, and we do have those textures right here. So I'm only gonna use the normal, the color and roughness and the metal. So let's start with this one here, which probably be the diffuse or base color. And there you go. Now you can see the difference. Now this is not like generic like the materials that we saw. This is, you know, specific for each single part. And thanks to the unwrapping, it's so specific. And also the details. If we apply normals, we're gonna have more and more details. And then we can check here the roughness. So we can do a uniform roughness effect or glossiness, because roughness is the opposite of glossiness. Or we can do more metallic or less metallic. Or we can use some of these and see what happens when I apply a texture. And you can also like use a texture conceived for another layer into another channel and see what's gonna happen. So you can see this is, you know, using the roughness right here. Let's use the AO, and let's use this other one. So you can see you have like kind of different results. So I like this without the metalness and the glossiness. And let's say that I want to also use a material from here. So I'm gonna go in the smart materials. I want to look for actually directly marble, and there you go. So I can apply a marble, and you can see these textures now. It's overriding this material is overriding the original one. But what if I want to keep both? Well, in that case, again, I can use the fusion or blending mode. So I'm just gonna go down, and you can see now I can see both, because some of these normal effects are actually pretty good, and I want to maintain them. And then perhaps I can change a little bit the opacity, you know, and try to find the perfect blending points between the two. So you can still, you know, refine whatever you're bringing in here, like models and textures. Now, also, I want to create a new paint layer because I want to start also to paint. And we're going to talk more about brushes, but what I want to focus on is this top part right here. And this is to see the brush cursor or the full preview cursor, like this, or crosshair. So depending what you want to do, let's use this one. And then you can change the size. So you can make this really small. You can make it really big. You can change the flow. So it could be like, you know, a little bit less solid, less consistent than the other. And you can also change the size and the intensity or the flow by using the pen pressure. If you're using a tablet with a pen, you can change that. Let me use another color. Let's go for a red color. So I'm going to go here. And so right now I'm changing the paint of the brush that I'm using. And you can see I can also blend those together. If I change a little bit the flow, I can make them blend and overlap in very different way. So usually take the flow down because I want to have like kind of more realistic effect when I need to like move over with that paint more times before I actually get a nice and intense red color. Then we have opacity. So this is like the opacity here in the layer. So it's going to be less visible. If you drop down the opacity, it's going to be less visible. And then we have the spacing. So let's increase the opacity now. And let's bring down the spacing. And you can see you have I'm also going to increase the flow and decrease the size. So now you have a pretty, you know, visible drawing. And if you increase the spacing, you can have like dots instead of, you know, a uniform stroke. So this is what they are used for, spacing. And then you have distance. Now distance is pretty helpful when you don't use a pen and you want to be more precise. You have a distance, which is that gray bigger area that is going to be your lazy mouse essentially. So if I click now and start to draw, it's only going to appear when I go outside that gray area. And also want to decrease the spacing here. So I want to have a nice straight line. And you can see it's not appearing as soon as I click, but it's going to appear only when I go outside that gray area. So I can like manage the brush more, you know, I can do a more stable stroke. I can manage the stability of the stroke a little bit better. And then we have also other tools here like ease in, ease out for the stroke. And let's decrease spacing here. There you go. And well, we also have others, but we're gonna see them later. I think that's gonna be enough for this video. Remember, you can still play with the roughness together with the paint, or with the metallic effect together with the paint. We're gonna stop here. We're gonna continue in the next lesson. So if you enjoyed, please subscribe to stay updated. And also, if you wanna support us, please join the channel as a supporter. Go and check also other guides and courses that we have in digital painting and digital sculpting if you wanna work and create models and, you know, effects like this. So thanks for watching. See you in the next.